Hey, hey. Good morning. Um, so I've had a cold. I think it's a cold. It's probably a cold, and people still get colds, right? They do. I'm keeping myself warm and taking lots of vitamin D and C and zinc and all that stuff. So I'll get through this. And went yesterday and got a little uh, test, COVID test, just so that I'm not running around. Although I'm not leaving the house, but just don't want to leave the house, right? Until we see what's going on. But I think I'm fine. I'm sure I'm fine. Hey, Holly Clark. So I just was on the phone a little earlier talking to a friend, and we were talking about addiction and recovery and depression and trauma. And, he's had some stuff happen in his family and in his personal life. And, we're sort of talking about this sort of stuff. And you know, it's an interesting conversation because in the world of duality, in the world of right and wrong, good and bad, which most of us live in, a world of judgment, the world of fear, there's nowhere to go. There's no real solutions unless we look at, in my opinion, to a spiritual way of life. There's therapy can kind of do a little bit good. I mean, therapy has some value because we can reshape some of the past experiences. We reframe them. It's called reframing, or normalizing. Because a lot of times, we're running around thinking whatever's happening to us, whatever's going on in our life we're the only one that has that, and we feel, really separate. And so if we go to group, we see, oh shit, everybody experiences life or had these experiences, or way worse than me, and then it kind of lightens the load a little bit, and we know some freedom, but it's not long lasting. It isn't, it doesn't kind of, so many of us, for me, quite young, really quite young, I started to question, like, what the hell is going on here? Why do I feel like such a fucking round peg in a square hole? Why? And that I was quite young, and what came up for me, what I found as my solution, was drugs and alcohol. For me, and now a lot of people don't go that way. They go to maybe a psychiatrist, and because they're having crazy thoughts, and they say, what's going on with me? And he says, well, you're having crazy thoughts, and you're depressed, and he gives them medication, and they get dependent on medication, and so they're living in a bit of a haze, or they say, well, you're ADD, and they give them, another medication. So drugs are drugs. And I have friends, people I know who've smoked pot all their life, for 30 or 40 years to numb the experience, and because something is happening in their mind, and they have a judgment, and the judgment is on themselves, the judgment is on others, and they tend to separate or only have a small group of friends because these are people they can trust, and they can't trust those other guys. And it's how about the possibility of living free? And it's difficult if we're still smoking pot. Like if you're smoking every day, it's difficult to find your way to this real freedom, to this space that I'm talking about, which is in this moment, this beyond thought. And it's difficult if we're doing antidepressants. It's difficult if we're still drinking, and it's difficult if we're, acting out in a lot of different ways that we do to take us out of the moment. Because in the moment, in the beginning, there's this kind of we're challenged in the moment, with what's going on, and fear comes up, and we're like, and we run away from it, and judgment comes up, and we hide out. And I'm not want to take away from the fact that some people have trauma, that shit happened when we were kids, and or even later in life. Some people got trauma from violence, and it's hard to measure where trauma came from, but trauma seems to weld things in, and so when my opinion is that those weld spots of trauma can be softened. They can be softened, and they can be softened, and begin to let go. And so when you change your life, when you say, okay, that's enough, I'm going to find this love that David's talking about, that Muji's talking about, that many, many people are suggesting we can live in a state of bliss or freedom. And Osho and Ram Dass and so many, Dr. David Hawkins, Eckhart Tolle, so many people have been pointing towards this, and the sages of all time have always pointed towards it, that we are one, and in that one we are free. And so, if you make up your mind, if you say, I've had enough, that's where I want to live, I want to live free, then it's possible. It is possible. And it helps to identify where we've been. It does. It helps to identify that we've been, living in fear. See it when it comes up. We're just like, oh my gosh, look at that, And we're sometimes, we're afraid of the craziest things, what people will think. We're afraid to talk about fear because people will judge us. We're just, and it locks us down. It cuts off all the exits. And so sometimes you have to bust out, So if drugs and alcohol have been how you've been dealing with it, and the neat thing about drugs and alcohol is that eventually you'll burn the house down. Things will get really bad. They don't get better, And if you take on medication, and which seems to be the line of defense that psychiatry has, to a certain degree. It's changing. I think it's changing. But if you're on medication, I'm not suggesting you get off your medication. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving advice on that. But I am suggesting that you begin to search a spiritual path. Read the Bhagavad Gita, right? Listen to Ram Dass, and listen to Muji for hours. And freedom is there. It will start to melt the, prejudice that you've had, the fear that you've had, the pride that we have. Pride tells us we don't need help, and it's bullshit. It's a lower vibration. So that's my story today. That's, that it's sometimes society, because it takes some time to, help people to move into a new way of living, and to move into a way of living at a higher level in unconditional love. This is not an easy, this takes time. The beautiful things about the 12-step program is that it's endless. There's so much availability of people to help you see that, love is the way, that God is the way, that, the higher power, however we see it, is the answer. And imagine that you came here to Earth, to planet Earth, and you're in this body, so you're this spiritual being in a human body. You're not necessarily who you think you are. You're not Jimmy or David or John or, those are what we call ourselves. But what we are is this spiritual being, and somehow when we got here, and it's rough here, and it's a bit traumatic, and it can be, and maybe we're in a family where there was a lot of fear, a lot of separation. Don't trust those people down the street. They're from India, or they're from, they're Irish, whatever the prejudice was, and we were grown up with that, we've got that integrated into our system, and maybe Uncle Joe took advantage of you when he shouldn't have, for sure shouldn't have, and so you're angry at men, or on the other way, Uncle Joe took advantage of, and you're a man, and you're scared of men, and all of those things are integrated into the system where we're living in that reality, and therapy doesn't seem to break it up, to let it dissolve, into the moment, but meditation and spirituality and consciousness, it helps us to get free. And that's what we want, is to be free. And the 12-step world helps us. I mean, that's what that does. If you look at those steps, and recognize that, we develop a concept of a higher power that's our own concept. It's not a religious program. It's a spiritual program of awakening, freedom. Yeah, anyway, that's... go on. I do. All right. For those of you that watched me yesterday, you know that I was really had a cold yesterday, and I'm feeling better today. I've just been easy does it, but I am feeling better, and I'm sure that I went and got a test yesterday. I went to the Children's Hospital locally where they have the testing place. I drove in. Thank God this time they didn't stick the thing in my nose. They do the COVID test in the nose. It's in the throat now, and which seems to be much easier and or more pleasant than the nose. And anyway, so that's I'll get that result in the next day or so. Till then, I'm going to stay a little close to home, because they ask us to do that, and I am. But a year ago or so, if we had a cold, we'd still be out spreading it all over the place. So now I get that, staying home is a good thing when you have a cold. Even if you just have a cold, why would you want to take it out and give it to everybody? Anyway, here I am, going to do this reading from the 24-hour day book. And here we go. This is this is 12-step based. And if you're not in recovery, we're all in recovery from some addiction. We're addicted to who we think we are. We're addicted to our beliefs and our concepts and our ideas. And we're addicted to something. Spend 10 minutes with me. I'll help you to see where you might be addicted to something. And freedom from addiction, baby, is freedom. Okay, December the 9th, thought for the day. The way of the 12 steps, or the way of AA, is the way of fellowship. We have read a good deal about fellowship, and yet it is such an important part of the 12-step world, in the AA program, that it does not seem that we can think too much about it. It does not seem that we can think too much about it. Man was not made to live alone. A hermit's life is not a normal or natural one, he says. This is written in 1948. We all need to be by ourselves at times, but we cannot really live without the companionship of others. Our natures demand it. Our lives depend largely upon it. The fellowship of AA, the fellowship of the 12-step world, seems to us to be the best in the world. Do I fully appreciate the fellowship of the 12 steps? Yes. Yes. And how we build that fellowship is to stay in touch, give each other a call, say, how you doing? Especially right now, lots of people are just at home doing nothing. Meditation for the day. We're all seeking something, but many do not know what we want in life. We are all seeking something, but many do not know what they want in life. They are seeking something because they are restless and dissatisfied, without realizing that faith in God can give an objective and a purpose to their lives. Many men are at least subconsciously seeking for a power greater than themselves, because that would give a meaning to their existence. If they have found that higher power, you can be the means of leading men. You can be the means of leading men aright by showing them that their search for meaning in life will end when they find faith and trust in God, or the moment, or universal intelligence. Thanks, Teresa. And and when they find faith and trust in God is the answer. Prayer for the day. I pray that my soul will lose its restlessness by finding rest in God. I believe that I may find peace of mind in the thought of God and his purpose for my life. And so for me, what's happened with this, I'll call it this God business, is that I recognize that for me, where I found the experience, because I'm not interested in a belief. I had a belief, and it didn't carry me. It wasn't an experience, but where I found the experience of this higher power, this universal intelligence, this oneness, this thing we call God, is in the moment. And how did I get to the moment? Through meditation, through service, through prayer, through contemplation, through self-realization. It seems like a lot of work, but it came. It was like, oh, I realized that I was not my thoughts. I realized I was not my mind. I realized I was not my story. So who was I? In the moment, I am this. I am that. I am the isness. And so we experience God. We experience love in the moment, bliss and peace. And it's there for everybody. It's not a exclusive thing. It's not a religious thing. So meditation helps, and that's why we're going to sit and meditate for a couple of minutes. You know, I don't know any other way to kind of show this than to do this. And it takes balls, you guys, to be with yourself. It does. Yeah, it does. It takes courage somewhat, you know. So you may have to pray for courage to be present, to be here now, to face our stories about ourselves, to face our life, to be in the moment. And I'm calling on you to have some courage to just meditate, you know. And the answers, you know, it's not that there's answers that come. There's a knowingness that comes, and the knowingness is that we are this. You know, there is no separation. We are freedom. We are love. Yeah. And as we lift up into those vibrations of freedom and love and acceptance and joy, all of the other stuff just falls away. It's just not there. So we cannot fix that, you know, confusion or fear or guilt or shame by working in that arena. We can't fix it at the level it's at. But as we move up to a higher vibration, to a finer vibration in the moment, then it's gone. And that when it appears, it seems like, oh, look at that. It's just, you know, there's no sense in it anymore to be separate, to have judgment. Because, you know, it just doesn't, it doesn't fit anymore. We live in another world, a new universe. Ha! So welcome to the new universe. Okay, you guys, let's close our eyes, find a comfortable spot. And it can be just wherever you are, literally. If you're in the car, just, you know, pull over and just close your eyes. Close your eyes. Make sure that you're comfortable, your feet are flat on the floor. If you're sitting like I am. If there's sound around or noise, or just include it. It's life, just include it. It isn't, I don't have to have a perfectly quiet or perfectly comfortable spot to meditate. You know, I don't even know if we should call it meditation. We're going to sit and be with this moment. Just use the breath to come into the moment. And look at that, it's 1:36. Here we go. So we'll drop in. So when you're in there, sometimes you'll see thoughts come. Thoughts will come. Just watch them. You'll recognize that you're not the thinker. those thoughts. In this moment, you're separate from them. You're the observer, the witness of the thoughts. You're watching yourself observe. As the observer, you can decide not to attach, not to give them any energy, not to be against them, just let them go. They'll be back, don't worry. Just let them go. The beginning of awareness is that we are not our thoughts. Okay, so just come back when you're ready. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So just even a daily meditation practice begin to open the door for you. It softens the old hard ideas, the old, concepts and beliefs. And if we expose ourselves to some of the teachers I shared just now, Eckhart Tolle and Mooji and Osho and Ram Dass and Alan Watts, listen to some of these guys. Dr. David Hawkins, beautiful. They have found the way, all of them, and to freedom. So I wish that for you. Okay, you guys, thanks so much. If you go to my YouTube channel, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, Valley and Beyond. And, it helps the whole thing. I'm playing with YouTube. helps the whole thing if you go to YouTube and subscribe and like or comment on the posts. Helps the algorithms. I'm playing with YouTube, so it's my thing. Thanks, you guys. Cheers.